Okay. Call the meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded. Anyone intended to make an audio or video recording of this meeting should notify the chair at the beginning of the meeting. This meeting of the Community Preservation Committee will be held in person at the location.
No.
No? All right, with us.
You said the roll call.
All right, so we'll start with the roll call vote. We'll sort of go around this way and end with Nathan, Brian Payne, present.
Carl Pike. David McKee, present.
Dr. Fowler, present.
Nathan Hedberg, present.
Thank you. Everyone have a copy of the agenda?
Yes.
Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second, is there any conversation about the agenda?
I might recommend that we look at the account balances before discussing the project applications.
That shouldn't take too long to do. Don't want to keep our guests for too long. I don't object to that.
No.
Objection? We'll amend the agenda to move review the availability of CPC funds to the first item. All those in favor of approving the agenda as amended?
There's no times on it, so you
All right, great. So we can just move forward then. All right, so let's take a look at the availability of CPC funds. Pretty straightforward. Anybody have any questions? We don't have any answers.
Looks good to me.
All right, thank you. We don't need to take any votes on that because there's nothing to approve. So let's begin with the review of the applications. And we'll just go in order as they appear on the OneDrive, which would mean Jones River Corridor is up first. We'll have that application in front of them.
All right, I will recuse myself from the committee for this one. The new applicant on the project is the Conservation Commission, but the Jones River Watershed Association is still the co-applicant.
Thank you, Nathan. Okay, so I reviewed it. It does qualify as far as I can see. I'll open the floor for questions or comments from the committee.
Did these questions go to Pine? Was that?
Sure.
I think Matt is
Oh, Matt?
also, Matt is
Okay.
also online,
Oh, okay.
and so either one of us could answer, I think.
Okay. Well, just for clarification, it's a total of $250,000. It's $50,000 this year and then $100,000 each of the next 2 years. Is that correct?
That's the way we proposed it.
My question would be, what happens if we don't get the grant?
There's 3 grants that we probably will get.
If we don't get the grants, then we're probably not going to be able to purchase the property, and then we probably won't be able to spend the CPC funds.
Okay, so I would expect that to be turned back.
Of course, Carl.
Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
No reallocation funds allowed.
No way.
There's no reallocation of funds. If you get funding from CPC, and then you can't move it around to some other bucket once you get it. So Matt can't spend it on some other crazy idea.
No, we've even returned money for the same property for different projects. We get it.
Have a record of that.
But I bet you'll find another property to request the 250 for the next year.
There's only so many properties left, Carl.
The state has a 40% goal.
I promised myself I was going to keep quiet here. However, do you know what percentage of the land in Kingston is owned by the town already?
I do not.
Matt?
No, not that I could speak to with any specifics.
I looked at it, oh God, probably 3-4 years ago. And it's somewhere, it depends how you look at it.
if I look at just so-called conservation, open space type of land, it was somewhere around 15%. And, of course, that was before the 40 acres up by Stop and Shop. So I worry at times that we just continue to look to purchase land for conservation and open space. And then we get phone calls, how come our tax rate keeps going up? Well, we're taking all the land that we could ever build anything on. So if everybody's happy with an annual tax rate increase of 3 or 4%, then I guess that's, the road we're going down.
My opinion on that is to hell with the tax rate. We should be putting aside as much as we can to protect what we've got now.
Okay, I guess my question on that would be, would you suggest that Kingston should never grow any more population?
We are growing tremendously.
No, we're not, ma'am.
Yeah, we are.
I will bring
I've seen the numbers.
the
And
numbers.
right now, we don't have resources to growing, like our population is growing. But that's not the reason that I want to save these pieces of land. It's because of what they are, the animals, the atmosphere, the water content, groundwater, all those things.
I agree to a certain extent, and that's why I'm very happy to sign off on buying certain pieces of property.
Yeah.
But what gets me, it seems to me that every single piece of property that comes up, we want to buy. And that's where I think that we have to somewhere
Well,
draw the
Matt
line.
would be the one to speak to that. I don't know how many
Yeah, I
come up.
mean, I would say that's an inaccurate statement because we definitely don't want to buy every piece of land that comes up. And also, when you spoke before, and I'm sorry, I lost my voice, so forgive me. But when you spoke before about the tax rates, I mean, there's plenty of studies out there that show that conservation land is not driving increases in tax rate. If anything, it's in general usually a savings to a middle class or smaller town. Whereas when you grow, when you bring developments in, you're bringing in, yeah, you have a little bit of tax, income, but you're requiring more services provided for the extra residents between schools, fire, police, all of that, and all of that adds cost to the town. So I don't think we're, approaching some sort of tipping point where we're going to be in calamity. I think Kingston definitely needs to look into, its taxes over time, and we need to have more commercial development, commercial redevelopment. But I don't think it's fair to say that, conservation land preservation is somehow tanking the town and causing these huge increases in taxes. And focusing back on this specific property that we're talking about right now, this one is directly on the Jones River. It has modified the banks of the Jones River. It has moved a tributary of the Jones River into a different location on the property, into basically pipes and ditches, and heavily modified all of the wetlands on the property. So there's a huge amount of capacity on this property for ecological restoration, which I think everybody realizes at this point is important. And beyond that, it has huge capacity for passive recreation. And potentially a pretty decent agricultural preservation component too, if we can pull all of this off. So just kind of focusing back on this one, this is pretty much the last big ticket item on the Jones River. So for anybody who's not aware, the Jones River is completely contained within Kingston, running from Silver Lake out to the bay. And, conservation and nonprofits like Jones River over the years and the decades have done a great job of protecting some of the larger parcels when they come up that are going to buffer the Jones River and make it so that you don't have lawns coming right down to the river and you don't have a lot of discharges into the river. And this really is the last big parcel that's come up where we have that potential.
Thank you, Matt.
It seems that case is made pretty well in the application, and conservation has been pretty strategic about their property acquisitions over the years. And they're certainly not out of step with the general trend to protect waterways, particularly riverfronts and ocean fronts. So I hear your concerns, and I don't disagree with them, but I think the record would show that conservation has been very strategic in what properties they decide to go after. My only question here is the asking price of 3.3 million. Is that, how is that determined? Is that what he's expecting to list the property for, or?
He's already listed the property for $3.3 million, and that includes all of his agricultural implements. It's currently a cranberry farm, has been for, I don't know, 50 years or so. So we're not expecting to pay $3.3 million for the property. It's, currently under a negotiation, but we expect the strong majority of the purchase to come from grants that would be federal and state funded.
Yeah, you listed that you expected to apply for a total of 2 million in grants.
We already have 2 million. The state is applying for a federal grant for coastal resiliency projects all across the eastern part of the state. And they already have a placeholder in there for $2 million for purchase of this property for us. So it's not a done deal. The application isn't due until February, but it's a big deal, and they've already basically got it in their application. So as long as the state is successful in going for this larger grant, we will get that money. And we have several other grant opportunities that we're going to be applying for. There's a specific cranberry bog acquisitions program that we're going to apply for. And then we've also put a placeholder in the state for the MVP, the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program. So we have 3 really big grant programs that each on their own probably could pay the majority of the purchase. So we feel pretty strongly that we can pull it off.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions from the committee? We're not voting on any of this stuff today. We're just here to fill in any gaps that we might have. So I appreciate your time. We move on to the next one, which is affordable housing. Representative.
All right, I can rejoin the committee now.
Okay. Questions from the committee regarding the application from affordable housing. This is just their standard request for their bucket of money. Or them. We know, last year there was some concern that affordable housing was accumulating money, but not actually investing it into any affordable housing. Do we know what the current bank account is for affordable housing in Kingston right now?
I can answer that. I think it's just over 800,000.
That would sound correct to me.
And that's been accumulated over 6 years now.
This gives you 850.
Is there anything in the plans
Yeah.
to spend any of that yet?
The trust is prepared at any moment to spend it. It has to do with the right opportunity coming along. And that's really the value of the trust, is that it can act very quickly if necessary.
Yeah.
When was the last time the trust purchased anything?
Ever.
Let's see. There was an expenditure or a distribution for some consulting that had to do with sort of an establishment of the
Not
trust.
actual purchasing property or financing the acquisition of affordable housing in any way.
Right, yeah. Nothing's been spent to actually generate housing yet. But it's also not considered a lot of money. If you look at other towns, they have more resources available and in an unspent state.
I don't know if anyone else saw the report from the state regarding CPC procedure that came out several months ago, but the main red flag was the inability of CPCs across the state to do anything about affordable housing. A pretty aggressive attack on the CPC programs in Massachusetts, specifically on, it seems to be they're spending most of their money on recreation and historic preservation, very little of it on affordable housing. There were some concerns expressed last year. At that time, I didn't think much of it, but I am increasingly concerned that affordable housing is not actually doing anything.
I can tell you from my experience when I was the treasurer here, is that the Affordable Housing Committee certainly has done work in trying to do something. For instance, they had looked at the old social club there on Howlands Lane. I was
Hillside.
the Hillside Club as to doing something with that. They had worked with the Plymouth Affordable Housing Committee, whatever it is, to see, you know, if they would be interested in working together. I think they've looked at a couple of individual properties. And I think that if Jean Landis Norman was here, she would tell you that the two issues, number one, she feels that the committee isn't properly staffed. There's no full-time person to take care of the administrative, the legal, et cetera. And also, as was mentioned, that $800,000 is not a lot of money. Now, my response to that when I was treasurer, well, why don't we go out and build one house for $600,000 or a duplex for $600,000 and make it into affordable housing? I'm not on the committee, so I assume it's much more difficult than that. But I think it is a valid point. In fact, as a financial guy, I was not too excited when we went to the concept of a trust. I believe that that takes the control of it a bit away from the town, and that you're better off if you have that as part of the general funds. But that's kind of just an editorial.
Any other questions? Okay. List of farm is next on the list. Guess this is you, Matt.
It's me again.
Any questions for Matt?
I guess my question would be, if we spend $3,000 now to, you know, kind of solve this problem, do you see us having to spend $3,000 annually to maintain it, or $1,000 annually to maintain it? And I know there's always pressure on operating budgets, but to me, once this is cleaned up, then it really should be an operating item as opposed to, you know, a special funding like this $3,000. So my real question is, once it's done, do you have concerns about the cost of doing it on an annual basis?
Not annually, no. You know, if there's enough of a seed bank there for invasive species that they start to creep back in, then we may down the road need to do it again. But really, you know, the mowing regime, I hope will take over that. So I think that it's not going to be an annual thing for sure. But, you know, a couple of years, 3, 4 years, 5 years down the road, could we come back again and ask for a couple thousand more for a follow-up treatment? Maybe. But yeah.
And see, this is an example for, you know, I guess we don't have a ton of people watching it, but my concern is one of my concerns of purchasing properties is always that we think about spending the, I don't know, pick a number, $2.5 million for these bogs. But then we go down the road a piece and, well, we need to spend so much annually on maintenance. So we don't spend much money on maintenance. I know that from some pieces of property near my house. Or we need to go out and buy a piece of equipment to, you know, cut the brush down. So that there is an ongoing maintenance cost of these properties that I don't think is really considered very strongly when you're buying the property.
Can I address that since you raised the question?
Certainly.
You were on the blogs. The idea that we have about that place is to establish a stewardship center that would be able to take care of the continuum of open spaces in Kingston. That's what we're striving for.
And I think your observation would be true of every single thing that's on the docket right now.
In Kingston,
Historic, recreation, open space.
streets and parks.
There's maintenance costs to all of that. So Matt, could you tell us what the maintenance regime currently is at Callista?
Monthly mowing of the Callista Farm is basically a grassland. It's an old agricultural field. So you have about, I don't know off the top of my head, I think it's about 4 acres of grassland there. So we have a trail that is like a loop trail that goes from the parking area through that grassland and comes back to the parking area. As of this past year, I started contracting a landscape company to mow that trail monthly so that it stays usable so people can actually go out and walk through there because nobody wants to walk through tall grass and get a bunch of ticks. So I think
And that's in your operational budget?
Yeah, and that was the first year we've done that. I mean, in past years, somebody that lived near there, I think, was mowing the trails and then they stopped. So I mean, it's just as I got to know a lot of these properties, you figured out what needed to be done. We do a lot of sort of back and forth with facilities or highway for some needs like that. But that depends on availability and staff and equipment and all that. But in general, I mean, our operating budget for conservation properties is almost nothing. I mean, it's a couple $1,000s a year. It's shifted anywhere between $4,000 and $10,000 in my time in Kingston. And now it typically goes between $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a year to maintain all of our properties all across town. So obviously we rely a lot on volunteer help, and we get on the ground a lot and try to do this stuff. But it's also, conservation land doesn't need a lot. I mean, every conservation property doesn't need to look like a national park. And some people have higher expectations than others. If Carl's out enjoying a conservation property near his house, maybe he wants it to look a little more manicured than some other people. But they don't need it, so we don't really do it, and we don't aim to push our operating budget up much, because to me that helps show the point that you're not spending a lot of money on owning that. You're saving money on not providing services for the houses that are not on that property and all the kids that don't live there and all of that. So it just kind of goes to prove that point. It doesn't take much.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll now move to Jimmy Swift. Cheers. Thank you. Just tell us a little bit about the project you're working on.
Chimney Swift birds have lost significant roosting over the years. Modern chimneys are just not inhabitable for them anymore. So I'm gonna build them a tower for them to live in, and also to increase public interest, to ensure them a much better future.
We talked about this last time, the location. You've been working with Matt in conservation, so Matt, do you have anything you want to add to the project? Are you a co-signer for this project or just a supporter?
No, Matthew's done everything by himself. I can co-sign on it if that makes people more comfortable approving it, but he handled everything. I didn't even really give him much for guidance on how to apply for CPC. So it's part of the process.
Application looks fine to me. Any questions from the committee?
I had a question about, is this can you call this a structure of like a building? Or was it just,
It's like
because
a
it was a place,
tower.
yeah, I know what it is, but it was a place where, is this a structure or something like that? I forgot the question on the
Yeah,
application
we
form.
talked about that last time. I don't think it would be determined as structure.
Okay,
Um,
all right. And there were a lot of signature pages that he didn't sign. I'm not sure in his case if they're absolutely necessary or not. All the collusion and stuff like that. I don't remember which ones. were
Yeah,
signed.
tax compliance certificate.
Yeah.
I don't think they're applicable.
Oh, that's what I figured, but I wasn't sure.
I think he referenced that in the application where he wrote not applicable
Okay,
and a couple other questions. I think the non-conclusion one might have to be signed though. You're basically saying you're not making any personal profit off of the project. You're selling yourself the concrete bags or something like that. So that would be the, you just have to sign it for them. It's not that big of a deal.
You have,
We can take care of it.
brought the original. Brought up the original.
Trish, do you have it?
You take it out of your copy, do you know? If it's in here, you can sign the one I have. I just don't know if it's from the.
Yeah, it's not a huge, we can make sure it gets signed before it goes to town meeting. There was conversations about the location, it's going on the rec field, right? Yeah. And was that property purchased by CPC fund?
That's, went through town meeting. I don't remember how it was purchased.
Yep.
Rules about whether or not to be classified as maintenance if it was purchased, if it was purchased.
Brian, this is Susan Woodworth. I can answer that question. It was not purchased by CPC funds. That land was prior to CPC being
Thanks.
being
Susan.
created.
Okay.
So. All right, I'll have to do a little bit of research. I think it qualifies, but I know there was language in the CPC program about spending CPC funds on town property, but that was not purchased by the CPC.
But if it was before the rules,
It was before the rules,
It
they sort of
shouldn't be a
way,
problem.
I'm sure there's a way around it. I'll
Yeah.
just have to figure it out.
well, especially for historical.
Right.
You know,
Right. All of historical
right,
project would just be disqualified.
Right.
It shouldn't be a problem. I'll just
Hey,
have-
Brian,
Yeah,
am I remembering correctly? Didn't we discuss with the assessment doing this as a recreation project?
yeah.
Okay.
We did talk about that, but I
I don't know
think
if
that
it's
was
on-
under the impression that the fields were purchased for recreation by CPC.
Well, I think that was the break was that the requirement for purchase by CPC was only for open space, right? It wasn't for recreation properties. You could maintain recreation property that wasn't purchased with CPC, I think.
That was the loophole we found.
Yeah.
And we already had this conversation. Okay, and recreation doesn't object to this?
No, the Recreation Commission was made aware of the project and voted in favor of the project.
Awesome, thank you, Susan. Any other questions?
One more comment that we had discussion about was the abutter waiver. And we voted to not, I guess, approve that, which is something that we can choose to, but in this case, I think it makes sense for any possible abutters, if there are any, to be notified about the project.
Yeah, I think the only abutter is the fields, right? Is there private property?
There is a residence pretty close to that particular part of the fields, yeah.
So Nathan, are you saying we have the authority to waive that?
I that's what the assessment form suggests, because there's a place to mark requesting a waiver.
I thought we have in the past waived the abutter notification.
Yeah, but I think it's what Nathan's saying is at the last meeting, we voted not out to waive it, or at least we didn't vote to waive it. Which would require Matthew to get permission from the abutter.
Yeah, and that's not to say that I'm against the project. I like it. I just think that the process should be followed in terms of the abutter notification.
Yeah, you know them. She's a veterinarian and her son is. So.
Do you think we could get a ladder?
I don't know, it's not necessary for them to receive a letter, it's necessary.
Okay.
Yep.
Do we have like a form letter that?
Yep, it's in the, yeah.
She's literally our veterinarian.
Yeah.
It's, they can go to the assessors. and get the alerts, but they just have to send a letter explaining.
Okay. Yeah, if we could have that before the next vote, which is, when is it?
They just need to say.
March 7.
March 7th. Okay. You have that by March 7th. Okay. Great. Thank you, Nathan.
Do you have any others?
Think I have any questions left?
Okay. You guys have any questions? All right, let's move to the next one then. Thank you. Let's see, the old burying ground did not submit an application, so
Correct.
we can jump ahead to repairs to Bradford. Thank you, John Bradford. Questions from the committee? 71,850. You'll see by the balance, we've got $20,000 over their bucket that we would have to drop from the general fund.
I didn't see anything. I thought it was a good application.
Nathan, do you have any questions?
Nope, all good.
It's good for me. All right. That's easy. Let's go to the next one. Tennis courts. $145,000.
I don't have a question, but it's a little bit similar to what Kyle had brought up before. What is actually maintenance and what isn't maintenance? And I know this is a worthy project, needs to be done, but I just question some of these projects, something that should be done on an annual basis, the upkeep under maintenance, instead of getting to the point where it's a one-time $150,000 project.
CPC cannot fund maintenance.
I know we can't. I know we're not supposed to, but that's why I guess it's a philosophical question.
Yeah.
What is maintenance and what isn't maintenance? Should this be an annual maintenance issue that's taken care of on an annual basis? So it doesn't come before CPC enough.
Yeah, I wonder if that question can be answered by determining how long these repairs will last for.
Brian, if I could speak, Susan Woodworth.
Yeah.
Just with regard to that question, there is annual maintenance that is taken care of on those courts, and it has been done for years. The courts have been resurfaced over the years. They have been power washed. They have been relined. So there is ongoing maintenance that's happened to those particular courts. But again, like with anything else, you have a car, you do maintenance on it every year. There comes a time that you just need to either rehab it or start over. And we're kind of at that point with these particular courts, as we've been doing all those things for years. And now the courts are in so much disrepair that they really need to be readdressed in a different manner in this kind of rehabilitation of that court system.
How long do you expect this level of rehabilitation to last for?
Well, we've never done it since I've been in the tenure, so I've been here 25 years, so that's all I can speak of is the courts. I don't know when they were originally installed. So in 25 years, we haven't had to do this from my tenure, and plus I would imagine sometime prior to that. So this is the first time that I'm aware of for this full rehabilitation project.
Susan, Carl Pike, are you applying for, Peterson as a capital project also or not?
We haven't put it on the capital plan. It wasn't something that's on the capital plan. Capital planning is aware of the project through our town administrator's plan, but we have not put it in as a capital plan because I think there are other items on that plan from other departments and from our administration that are on that particular plan.
Okay, and are you comfortable with the estimate of $125,000 or thereabouts? Because it seems to me that there was an estimate at Silver Lake that to do a lot of work or replace their tennis courts. And I wanted to say that between the three towns was over $500,000. Because I know that there's probably, twice as much square footage up there.
Right. I think that there are quite a few more courts up there, so probably that's why the difference in pricing. I did receive two estimates. I went with the lowest estimate at this point. The other one came in when I went out to try to get bids for the application, much higher. But so I went with the one that we received the lowest bid on, and then with the 20% contingency. So I'm hopeful, barring any, costs with pavement or different things like that, that we don't have any control over, that we will be okay with this figure.
It's different having me question a number as being too low instead of too high, huh?
I know I should have taken advantage of that, Carl.
Yeah, it's only 2 courts, right?
Yeah.
So quite a bit different situation. Okay, I'm good with this one. Do I have any other questions? Great.
I'm good.
All right.
I don't
Last
have any
one.
questions, but I would say that I just agree with what David said about how I can't say lack of maintenance, because maintenance has been done, but if whatever needs rehabilitation now had been kept up with over time, then it wouldn't be coming as a lump sum. And something that I'm just thinking about now is if the $140,000 is expected to sort of sustain the court for 10 years, that would average out to $12,000 a year. And then I compare that to what it costs to maintain 4 acres of open space, and kind of illustrates how the open space is costing a lot less than 2 tennis courts.
I
Yeah.
don't disagree with you on the maintenance piece. Like I said, it has been maintained, but it does, just like with anything else, become a time that you can only maintain it to some level. And I would hope that the courts would be longer than 10 years, as these ones have been at least over 25 years. So if we did the math a little differently, the number would be a little bit different on my end.
Yeah, I think Susan's made a good point here that you can do maintenance every year and be very visual about it and still have to do some serious improvements every decade.
Yeah, I guess that's where the capital planning committee would come into play.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, our last one is youth sports improvement. I have a few questions on this one, but who's here to represent? Thank you for coming. Sure. I don't have to start. Do other people have questions? There seems to be a lot of missing information in the application. You refer to a shortage of fields based on population growth. Do you have any specific data on the increased number of recreational users in Kingston?
Well, I know that in 10 years ago, the population was 11,272, it's now 14,222. The original claim for opportunity field, which I have with me, included 4 full-size soccer fields. We have 2 down there, and we have 2 at KAS. Without paying for it, we can't use any other town fields. So I don't know what the population was in 2002, but I'm sure it's a heck of a lot bigger now. And the growth within youth sports across all sports has been significant, and there's lots of talk about uniting the field hockey team. So, and just our enrollment alone in soccer is 650, which is quite a bit more than this.
Yeah, I think adding those numbers in the application should strengthen it. You could show how many active participants there was in soccer when the field first opened versus today. You could actually put concrete numbers to the abstract observations that you're making in the application.
I don't know if that's easily attained. It was all just members of volunteer organizations from football, soccer, baseball.
Right.
So I'll try to do my best. But thank you.
Yeah, any additional specifics that you can find, like the number of games that are being fielded every year and how difficult, one of the arguments to make is that adding lights will increase the time that can be played. So if you can show, in 2015, we scheduled this many games. In 2017, we scheduled this many games. In 2019, we scheduled this many games. You could plot a growth. You can show concretely an increase in demand for the services that the fields are trying to provide. And thereby you don't have to speak so abstractly about those numbers.
Yeah.
You may also want to think about comparing Kingston to other towns in terms of how many fields are available in comparison to the town's population. Does Kingston have more play space or less play space compared to, say, Halifax or?
Halifax does use that field as well.
Right. You can include all that.
So they have like 2 fields.
Right. I mean, you're asking for a lot of money.
No, I know, I
So-
recognize that. And a lot of the rivers, we just need to get in front of people because it's a problem. Like they're gonna shut down Kaczynski on the weekends. We're running out of places to play. We're playing 45 games on 2 fields on weekends, which is totally undoable with baseball booking home games away. There's just not space. So I'm not a professional grant writer or anything like that. I'm just, we need to get it in front of people and try to get some people thinking about it. But we've tried for a year. Nothing's happened.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question, that, you know, from what I can see here, I can't imagine the CPC being able to afford to spend, pick a number, $50,000-$100,000 a year on a project like this.
Well, we didn't suggest that. We said we'd pay for the ongoing maintenance.
No, I don't mean maintenance. I mean, if it's a $500,000 project and CPC said, okay, we can contribute 50,000, would that do any good? You know, that's kind of my point on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Carl, it's out of our budget, I think. And if you could figure out a way to cost share it. You know, I'm not familiar with, youth sports grants, but there's gotta be some out there.
If Halifax is playing there, maybe they could pay for some of it. Or maybe not play there.
They're not playing on that, using the Kaczynski.
Okay.
And now that kind of gets me to a general comment. I know that some communities don't issue a lot of CPC grants year after year, and they build up a big balance. And then they have, for instance, I don't know how many people know that the Spire Center project is a $3 million CPC project that, now I'm not sure if that's over, you know, a period of 3 years or what
It's a
the time,
5-year thing.
5-year plan.
Yes,
Okay.
your percentage.
I
And it
don't
was
know.
cost sharing too, they had other grants. Although I think CP funded the vast majority of it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but you know, I think that's kind of a general comment that, you know, this committee may want to consider someday. Do we want to, you know, instead of issuing these $1,000, $10,000, $50,000 every single year, do we want to say, hey, we don't believe that these projects are what we want to do, and we're not going to issue anything this year. And then next year, you know, maybe we'd have 600,000, similar to what we did with the 40 acres, you know, up the street.
There's a question of whether or not we have the authority to do that. I mean, if we're relying upon recreation, conservation, historic to tell us what it is that they want to spend the money on. You know, I think we sort of defer to them a lot. We don't know if we have to.
I don't think we are. I think as the committee, we could propose projects ourselves.
Mhm.
In fact, I think that would be the route that the state would suggest in terms of affordable housing production.
Back to this specific project, you mentioned maintenance, and that's come up a couple of times with other proposals today, and that's an ongoing concern for this committee. I think that your application be strengthened, get some real numbers there, like what do you anticipate the maintenance cost to be? I mean, one of those light bulbs can't be cheap. You just have somebody go out and change it alone. It's gonna be-
Well, they're LED now, which have a much longer lifespan. The cost of like Rizzo, I wish it was still on, I think Rizzo Field and the surrounding baseball fields was about $19,000 in 2019 prior to COVID.
For lighting.
For the lighting of the baseball fields and the football field. K-Light, I say, ourselves, we kick in 75,000, maybe even 100,000 for initial project. And we also pay for the ongoing expenses. Another option is if you do the math on just renting the fields for 2 nights a week. It generates something in the nature of the clubs, and we have letters of indication in the copy. You did it from April to November, and just did 2 nights a week, from 5 to 10, we generate $68,000 at $100 an hour. That's on the low side. If you go up to like Union Point, granted the turf, they're paying 225. And even down in Plymouth at, we're down next to by Jordan Hospital there. The cost to rent those fields is like $75, given the location of the club going to play there.
Yeah, all that information would be great in the application.
We did this application with Davis too, because
Yeah.
we didn't know it was due that day. So
Um,
we just gave up work and spent like.
and if you're I mean, that's how much you could charge after the lights were installed, is what you're saying?
Yeah, because right now, especially in the fall time, you have light time until 6 o'clock, and come October, you got it to 5. So if you have lights on, you could then rent the fields for 2 nights from 5 to 10, and the rest of the youth sports would have the other 5 or 6 hours for the other 3 days to practice. So, and and that's how a lot of fields around here have gotten funded, is by. giving
Yeah, my
them-
question was, if you do that, I
Yeah.
thought, I was thinking you could do that now and put that money in trust and use that money to purchase the lights, but you can't do that.
Property, so it's not.
Yeah, it's,
Oh,
That would be
it's owned by the school, they go to the school. Yeah.
So you don't have control over those funds. So you wouldn't be able to use that fund for maintenance of the,
Well, we do, because that we set up an agreement with Joe Prue, the superintendent, and like the money that comes in, first base and maintenance of the field, and then the lighting costs and goes to whatever. However you want to do
so who owns the fields?
that.
Is Recreation a co-sponsor? But this is gonna be lights that the soccer association is going to pay for to light fields that they don't own.
Or, well, yeah, because we have the kids through KYSO, Kingston Youth Sports, and then KYSA actually is the ones that use the fields with the elementary school. For the use of those fields after the school is, you know, the school is dismissed. That's been ongoing for quite some time. I think it actually started with CPC back in 2018 when they spent $500,000. They lost out on the Halls property, and we diverted it and we did those fields up. And that's where the collaboration is from it. So yeah, that would be something we have to figure out. Again, this is not, I'm just trying to solve a problem.
It seems like a worthy cause. It just, I think the application needs more time to
Yeah, no, I'm sure.
circulate, needs more partnerships. So, you know, I would be a lot more comfortable with this if Recreation was on board as a co-sponsor.
Yeah.
I mean, because in theory, you're asking us to give CPC funds to put lights on the field that the owner isn't co-signing, or at least the
Well,
people
they
manage
did
it.
on the paper, they would on the paper, the superintendent would.
Yeah, KIS,
I would want to see
Silver
that.
Lake, I think supported this.
Yeah.
Is it on there?
Joe Prue signed, so she have to-
Well, Brian's looking that up. I just wanted to ask a question.
Sure.
Have you interfaced with that neighborhood that abuts those fields along there?
What do you mean by that? Sent out the letters?
Well, lighting up, yeah, it's,
Well,
have you
it's
had,
interesting that you asked that, because we did like the GPS thing from the town. And to the, if you drive up and the school's behind you, to the right of the fields, the town owns like 12 acres.
Yeah.
Behind the fields is a hill that goes up, and the top of the hill would be over the actual lights. And then to the left of the field, where there's a driveway that goes up, there's significant woodage there. So that would be the only issue, but there's only a few houses at the very end. And that's an Indian pond, like little, like break off section.
Yeah.
And so there's only like 3 or 4 houses that may actually be affected by your point, but that's still on an incline on the hill.
I can see up at Indian Pond Estates, it's probably not affecting them as much because of the elevation.
Yeah.
But I can see Copper Beach it being a significant impact on those people that back up to the field. I don't, no,
I know it may be, but I
Yeah.
don't think there's so much woodage between Copper Beach and the actual fields.
Yeah.
A lot of play in the street.
Pardon?
They play in the street.
But, yeah,
Some of the lights-
but I'm just saying there may
Yeah.
be some interaction there that you may want to try and preempt by reaching out to those people.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
Uh,
Go ahead.
I think I have a few things
Yeah.
to ask him.
We can close, any questions on the use
Say.
I'm good.
All right, good, go ahead. Go.
How is money moved?
So if you get the grant, you mean,
Yes.
you submit receipts and we reimburse.
Yeah, I was asked what, I got it wrote down, do I provide receipts?
Yes.
Should I, expect a check?
Once you provide receipts, right?
Yeah, so right now, we're process now, you have to move to a
Oh.
public hearing for public to be involved. Then it goes to a town meeting to be voted. So
Okay.
nothing will happen until.
It's
town meeting
long,
happens.
it's a long process.
And money would not be awarded until July 1st.
See,
Okay.
yeah, it's town governance. Takes a long time.
Yeah. Sorry, well,
So you have to front the cost yourself and then you get reimbursed. We had, 2 years ago, we had an Eagle Scout project.
yeah.
Yeah, it was the same sort of thing.
Okay, so we won't have to wait. It's 18 and April, so.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions?
It's gonna be okay. Don't worry.
Okay. So we'll close that part of the meeting. Thanks, everybody, for commenting. You're all free to go.
Grants, where should, I mean, where, should we try to submit more stuff to this application then? So, I mean, what's the timeframe?
Is it closed now? Are they allowed to improve or update applications?
I think it's fine.
The committee, do you want to accept amended applications?
Fine with me.
I think it's only fair if we're making recommendations to change things.
Yeah, so we did it last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is
Anybody
that
wants to-
deadline?
The week before we vote. Got enough time? 2 weeks?
That's just you. You're the ones reviewing.
You
it.
have to file the
Yeah,
paperwork.
he's, I mean, he'll give me, yeah, he'll give me the electronic copy, I'll send it to you, that's up to you on how.
Say 2 weeks. When do we vote? March?
March 7th is the public hearing.
Yeah, so 2 weeks before the public hearing. So I guess, should we vote on that? Like deadline, I just say.
So you're talking, February 22nd.
Yes.
Can I make one comment that if it comes back, it's not. If you give it to us 2 weeks in advance and they review it that night and it's not complete, then.
That's yeah, we have to vote that
That's not
night.
problem.
Yeah, we have to vote that night in order to get to the town meeting in time.
Yeah, that's fine.
We have to vote on it. And again, we just make a recommendation. Town, at the town meeting, they'll propose it. So if I answer your question too, we make recommendations committee to the town on how to spend the money. The town meeting, probably me, I read the proposal and the whole town votes on it. I think it's pretty unusual from that to vote on.
The whole town being the 200 people
Right.
max
Right.
that show up.
Right. Theoretically, that's democracy in action.
Decision made by those who show up.
Right, right. So we don't actually make the decision. We make a recommendation to the town, which makes the decision.
Have you ever been flatly rejected by the town and that?
I've only done this for 1 year. We weren't last year, so
What was the
imagine
question?
if, as a town rejected any recommendations CBC has put forward before. My understanding, most of the time we come in under budget. So it hasn't been
It's money that's
There are a lot of
available.
Projects.
Yeah.
the last couple of
The
years.
funding total that the town has is 400,000. And that's 50,000 to affordable housing, 50,000 for historical. Open space was 41, and then the general bucket only has 325.
We cannot,
325.
we cannot recommend the town more money than it's budgeted for. So at that March meeting, that's when things get really tough for us, because we have to decide what projects we're gonna fund, and what projects we're not gonna fund in order to come in at budget or under budget if we decide. Something like $900 is a big bang, but 500,000 money. All right, any other questions? All right, things are, yeah. All great projects, so we should fund them all.
Thank you so much.
We still have stuff to do. Planner?
Yeah, I'll leave it and send you. an email tomorrow.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy your night.
Thank you. All right, so let's take a look at, review of open projects. And approval of sending closure letters. So do you guys have this?
I don't.
I made copies, it was in the packet. Carol had sent me an email.
Is everybody familiar with what's going on now? No, whether or not we want to send letters to these individuals. We just need a first. I think last year we sent like 2 or 3 to each
No,
person.
that's, you went to the truck drivers, he sent about 25.
Oh, we're not
Close
doing
on time.
No, I mean to each person.
What do you mean?
Like
Oh,
we send them a
one letter.
warning and then closure.
One letter.
Okay,
I think that's how you, with the deadline.
okay, with the deadline. So it wasn't like, hey, your funds are gone.
No,
I guess that's what I was getting.
give them a chance to explain it if there's. one.
So the highlighted ones are the ones we haven't heard anything from. The pit was the Boy Scout one, right?
Yeah,
Did he not?
he may
submit
be done
receipts?
with this project. That's
He's
the
never
thing.
submitted receipts? Do we pay
He did.
anything to him?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, so
So
he
he
just,
probably doesn't know that there may be a balance.
okay.
Looking at this, Brian or Tricia, it's the ones that are all highlighted, all have a 0 balance or
No.
actual 20, no, what
No,
is,
it's the,
That's what they spent in 2024. They spent 0.
okay. Okay,
But there are other ones that have 0 too that aren't highlighted. Are they ones that we've heard from?
well, those are newer ones.
Okay,
But these are just,
okay, thank you. Oh, I see, 23, right? So it's not unusual that they haven't spent. I'm fine with sending letters, so all these folks.
Sure.
So it's the same letter we did last year?
Yep. what
Okay.
date do you want me to use as a deadline?
It'd be nice to know well in advance of our meeting.
So
So how about 2 weeks before? February 22nd, whatever it was. Does this money then get rolled over into our budget? Can we use it?
if you vote to close it, then yes.
a number of these were, just approved last year though, weren't they?
No, these are
The
all,
annual town meeting 23.
Yeah, not the, we're only looking at.
we're only looking at the
highlight.
highlighted ones.
Oh, okay, all right,
There's only 5 of them. that we
Okay.
send letters to.
okay.
That would be nice to know before our meeting, so everything. Do we need to vote on this? So, fine. Anything, any comments? Sorry.
No, thanks.
All right. Approval of meeting minutes. You guys all have many meeting minutes? Do you have a chance to review them?
Yep.
Any edits needed? Motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Any comments? Nathan?
Nope.
Okay, we have to go around, do a roll vote?
Yes.
Okay, Brian, aye.
Kyle,
David, I,
Dot I.
Nathan, I.
Thank you. All right, for the last item is, I guess we have to vote on whether or not I can sign as chair, or,
You can sign, you can approve the chair, or you can approve a specific person.
we just need one person to sign it then? We've always been like a whole bunch of people signing.
Yeah, if you want, if. The issue I find is people who are like, oh, I need the bills, like if someone comes to me tomorrow, they have to wait an entire month. So you can, the committee can vote if they choose to allow one person to sign the bills on behalf of the entire committee.
does that one person have to be the chair or could he designate somebody and somebody else to do that? So,
Like a vice chair.
No, no, Kyle, no, but it's nice to, so you don't
I'm
have
fine
to come,
doing it,
you could.
especially if I could do it electronically, like we did last time.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that, if you guys are fine with
We have to
Yeah.
vote on that.
it.
I'll make a motion that we do it that way.
So I would,
Make a motion.
A little more formal.
Make
first.
a motion that to allow the chair to approve bills.
Yeah.
as an individual signature.
And I'll make a motion that the chair be allowed to sign the bills.
Second,
Any further discussion?
Discussion, yeah. I have a question about this one.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a good idea? I trust Brian, but in the future, is it a good idea to be able to have just one person sign the bills?
We could put a term on it. Like for the next year.
I personally don't think it's a problem, mainly because we require, and Tricia's gonna tell me if I'm wrong, that the person who's responsible for the project is already approved the invoice.
The
And
person
so to
responsible
me, that's
being-
the real approval, that if we've got a conservation project and Matt Pinella has signed off on it, then, what do we really know when we're signing off on over that?
And, I make sure that it's a requirement, typically they have to fill out a project form that states where they are.
I think the signature from this committee is only saying that whatever they're asking money for fulfills what the CPC granted them money for. So if they
Yeah.
requested money to repair tennis courts and they submit a bill to install a basketball hoop, I think that would be something I wouldn't sign.
So yeah, that's something you wouldn't sign. Yeah. So I believe you wouldn't sign that, but I just want to consider the possibility that somebody who might be less detail oriented might be in that situation in the future. And I
Carl
think
is
there's a
saying-
benefit. I think there's a benefit to having checks and balances in the form of multiple people reviewing that bill.
You can always come in and review it if you want to.
If
think-
I can
think
review it
Renee has a good
electronically.
point. Yeah, you can. Just send them out electronically.
Yep.
I think Nathan has a really strong point here.
Well, do we want to say that it has to be approved by two people
Right.
and have, make our motion to authorize A and B to sign?
The chair and one other member of the committee.
And
something
it doesn't,
like that.
could it be any other
Be
member?
Any other member.
I'll amend my
What do you think of
motion.
that, Nathan?
I would lean towards 3, and is currently the chairman required to sign?
No.
No, as long as you
Okay,
sign, it's not a requirement for
So
the chair.
as long as you have a
Need-
quorum, you said?
you need 4 signatures.
Four.
That
Okay,
seems
I would be,
excessive.
I agree, 4 is excessive. I would be comfortable going down to 3.
That, to be honest, I don't know if you can say 3. And I only say that because the selectmen voted last night to pick 2. And I had to review it with town council. So I don't think that you can pick 3.
Was
would
it
either be
specific
one
to or just?
or quorum.
Well, a quorum would be, we are all the members, right?
For 7
No,
members of the
But
committee?
we don't
Two
have
more.
7 right now.
The
There's
quorum
2 more.
is 4. So the 4 of us here can sign these. But what Trish is saying is that sometimes she needs the bills signed quicker than just 1 month. It's hard to get 4 people to come in and sign the bills.
Yeah.
So she's trying to figure out a way where we can streamline the process.
Bureaucracy is winning.
I mean,
The bureaucracy is
yes,
winning.
Right,
exactly.
but Nathan poses a good concern. I think Carl's response to that was that there was faith in the town employee that's managing the project. Say Matt or Susan. That's already recognized that the expense was valid to the CPC funded project.
Now some projects aren't proposed by town employees. For instance, Bradford House renovation.
So it's whether or not you trust the chair, not me, but the chair, that the committee is duly elected to be vigilant in managing this.
I think sometimes we end up with vendors that are waiting a long period of time to get their money. And
Yes,
it's,
absolutely.
when you look at from when they're submitting their bills to go through the whole town process and then trying to bring, 3 or 4 people in here to sign before it can go to schedule to be paid. It's, I think it's unfair to a lot of people that are given the services to the town.
Yeah, and I think, you have to remember the chair is elected by the committee. If you don't feel that the chair is someone you could trust to do due diligence, then they shouldn't be elected. Be chair.
I think we should vote on the original motion to have the chair be the individual who's authorized to sign invoices.
We have motion and seconds already on the table.
Yeah.
This is the discussion period. So I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to speak.
You know, I would propose an alternative solution, which would be seemingly the ability to sign electronically, which would allow us to sign out of sequence with the meeting schedule.
You just said it was possible, didn't you?
Yeah, I would have to sign it, and then I have to make copies of every email that was sent and your signatures. Yes, it's a lot of paperwork, but it can be done.
Yeah.
So Nathan's
I can double
proposed
check it with
an
Carol.
amendment to the motion. Amend the motion so that it reads that bills need to be signed by the committee, form of the committee, but it can be done so electronically outside of a meeting, which I said that wouldn't be a quorum then.
It's just the numbers.
So that's
And
the
as I know
amendment
he
to the
wants it
motion.
electronically, I will just refer to Carol to make sure that I can before I.
I personally don't I don't like the electronic signature.
I think that sort of defeats the purpose of what's being proposed here, to try to make the system work a little bit better, so. I'm not gonna second Nathan's motion, someone else wants to.
No.
Sorry, Nathan.
Okay.
It's defeated.
Can we vote on the original
The
motion?
original motion's open, so, I'm prepared to close discussion on it.
I'm done.
We'll vote on it. Brian Payne, aye.
Kyle Pike, aye.
Dave McKee, aye.
Dot I.
Nathan, no.
Right, motion passes. Thank you, Nathan. Good conversation.
Can I ask one question, Brian, on the letters that we're sending out here? The one down the bottom, the very last one, what is that? Do we know what that is? Is it
Yeah, it just says
archaeological?
arch.
Is that what that is?
Archery?
Is that maybe something to do with the bottle, not the fields down the Hall property or something?
It says, so this was part of the original letters that Dan Shropshire sent. Probably over a year ago. So, Greg responded that it is the remaining funding of the archaeological field at Hall project to be used for Native American design signage at the entrance.
Okay.
He did state in his email that he was going to use it within a year, and that was November of 22, and he hasn't used it yet.
Okay.
We're not pulling funding. We're just really just asking for an update.
Mhm.
And if they don't respond, then we can pull funding.
Yeah.
If he
Yeah, so
responds
he
and says,
responded in August of 22, asking to keep the money. And it says this project is underway and should be completed by the end of fiscal year 23.
Yeah, if I remember right, that specific one, Craig was talking about using some of those funds for signage related to the Hall property.
Great.
But it's, we have a meeting, I believe it's next week, so I'll make sure
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
I'll email you the letter that I'll send.
okay, thank you.
Again, we're not pulling funding. We're just
Yeah.
looking for an update.
Yeah,
I think the idea,
I'd be ready to pull it
Yeah.
if he said he was to use it.
so if they don't, I think what we did last year, the people who didn't respond at all, we pulled the funding.
Yeah.
If they were able to
Makes
justify
sense.
why they still needed the money, we let them do
Yeah,
it.
there were a couple of really old ones that. would be kind
Yeah,
of
people just
old
didn't
anyway.
respond to us.
Yeah.
And so we just took the money.
I remember letting Pine spend Sampson Fund money 3 years later.
I never spent it.
It's-
Because it wasn't enough to do the job.
Oh.
Okay.
Project. And we had
Uh,
Frank Whiting throwing it
Any
in.
other business?
Our next meeting is,
Well, we don't really need our next meeting. Our next meeting was February 1st, was penciled in case we didn't get through a review of the applications in a single meeting, because last year we had a lot more. And we needed 2 meetings to get through them. We
Yeah.
made our way through all of them. And so I would propose that we can cancel the February 1st meeting,
Sounds good to me.
especially since I can just sign bills now.
Do we need a motion on
I don't think so.
that? Okay.
And if, you know, if any of these applicants have questions, Trish will handle all. I can try to help in some way.
and so our next actual meeting then will be,
March
March
7th.
So it'll be a public hearing, it'll be in room 200.
okay.
That's a tough one.
Okay.
Okay, unless we want to keep February 1st penciled in case something comes up, but
I mean, you don't have to officially cancel it, we can check base.
it's just tough. Unlikely to meet.
All right, yeah, I will unlikely to attend the February 1st meeting.
Okay. Likely to attend the unlikely meeting.
Hmm.
All right, seeing no further comments, make a motion to adjourn.
Second. I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
I'll
We
second.
don't need to vote on adjournment, do we? Oh, Brian Payne, aye.
Belt like I.
Dave McKee, aye.
Thought I.
Nathan, I.